This is the 13-year-old Turkish sensation Yagiz Erdogmus. He's the youngest chess grandmaster in the world right now, and he just smashed a record which has stood for 11 years since Titled Tuesday started in 2014. It's a weekly online chess event, the most elite chess grandmothers in the world, and in this game we're going to watch him absolutely smoke the guy Fabiano Caruana, who's rated the third highest of all time. I mean, serious cookie to take down, and he just slaps him around like a wet fish. We've got the white pieces here for Yaz, Fabi with black. It's online elite stuff, and then I'll bring you the moment, the crowning glory of this tournament at the end of the video, full details. So he opens up with pawn d4 here, and I tell you what, it's already too much for the fair play officer Vladimir Kramnik.
I mean, d4 move, it just wouldn't even cross my mind. Very often one move is enough indicator. It's just like impossible to find d4. Absolutely impossible. Let's check if it's the main move, if it's the best move. It's second line, yeah. No, I mean, one move, clear indicator to me. So everything is very clear to me about this game. I report, I block, and report.
So Fabi responds in kind here. The knights develop, and how about this? A London system, hands up if you play it, voted the second greatest weapon of all time. The first greatest, of course, we all know about. I'll link it in a video at the end in case you never saw it yet. So Fabi copies the move, sets up this massive Jenga tower on the F-file. Who's going to break it first and make it topple? These E-pawns now push, and we get the explosive c4 takes us into this theoretical territory now, because Fabi gives up the bishop pair. What's that all about? We're about to see his idea, but of course we must recognize he's just toppled the Jenga tower. Absolutely criminal. He shall be punished. Must wear his big bird outfit to next week's tournament. Normally he only likes to don that one on a Saturday night down at the disco with Jan Nepomniachtchi. Now we could recapture with the rook straight away, but instead we see the check flicked in with the queen. If queen blocks, well then you can get the ladies off the board. Does help when your king's staggering around the centre, though this is the top move. Fabi, however, goes for this one. The knight's now a bit clumsy, but it does support after rook takes, bishop b4 check, and the king's got to take a stroll in the centre, freestyle-esque. So it steps up to e2. The bishop on f1 is crying. Now we see bishop d6. Perhaps Fabi a bit worried about the knight hopping into that square. Creates the tension here, and Yaz keeps the pieces on the board with bishop g5. Fabi takes on c4, queen recaptures, we get the king going to safety, and now the banana hammock is built, making way for the bishop to develop. h6 puts the question, and you're well advised not to drop back, walk into g5. Black gets quite some initiative, so takes is played, queen takes back. Now the bishop tucks into bed here, and e5's a great liberating move, really putting a question to this center, trying to get at the white king. How do you respond? Well, takes is best. Knight takes looks really natural here, but something about it Fabi didn't like, so he goes with the bishop. Also a good move. You don't want to start taking, because the knight gallops in, and say you dare to take a pawn here, well now look at the bar react. It's about -6 or so. The rooks start joining the party. There's big problems against the king and the f2 pawn. The knight could be hopping soon. You know, it's not really an initiative you want to give. So instead b4 is played before it can be taken. Now it threatens this, and Fabi allows it, drops the bishop back here. He loves that square for some reason. b5 is played. Surely the knight's now headed here, but no. If you do this, we've gone to the back cave once more. White can take, bishop recaptures or queen, and now you take on b7, and it's a big pawn to drop, because now you drop back here and everything's horrible on the light squares. Therefore Fabiano drops the rook back to the Etienne back row, or the knight back, sorry I should say, And it's really moments like this where he needs a stern word from a good chess coach, right? Where are you headed with that absolute donkey? We now see the rook centralised here. Pawn a6 is played, and it's not a good move because, well done if you can see this idea. What do we see Yaz do but slide on right past? And the whole idea is that whether you take or push, whatever, you're weakening this bishop. C6 perhaps the best, but the rook slides over, defending the pawn, eyeballing the queen. You could centralise the knight. We won't go there. We'll stick with what's played. Now the pressure's put on the bishop. No time for C6 anymore, or the bishop does drop off the board. So we get rook E8. This bishop hits a new diagonal, forces the rook away. Now this one attacks the pawn, and again it asks really uncomfortable questions. How are you defending? You can't push. The piece drops. So we see this move of knight c6, spawning the seahorse once more, but not the best. Now bishop d7 comes in, and Yaz is just bullying Fabi here, despite the fact he's absolutely ripped. What to do now? The rook saves itself, takes his played, pawn recaptures, and now this rook takes. Yes, black can take here. You could actually just take that one off the board. Pawn takes, queen c6, pressure the structure, but instead we see the queen slide back to c4 here. It does allow rook b2 check. It was the best way to go, but Fabi takes the rooks off instead. Queen recaptures. Now he lands the check with the queen. The rook blocks here, and he drops back, checking the king, taking the queens off the board, but really not the best. You suspect Ali Reza or Magnus or Hikari would have kept those ones on, looked for chances against the king, which is a bit exposed, but this is how the game proceeded. Pawn takes back, an absolute octopus centralizes, hitting the pawn, and after it's defended, attacked, no time to push p here, or knight takes, therefore before this can be captured it plows down the board, but now look at the rush of the white king. Very, very unpleasant endgame. The king hits c4. This pawn's not long for this world, and technically you could try and lift the rook, cut the king, one of the best moves, but instead the bishop drops back. Dad's absolutely ashamed. What are you doing back here? The knight now hops forward, and that pawn's not long for this world. h5 is played. The knight takes the pawn here. h4 from Fabi, just chucking material. Yaz says thank you very much. Gobble gobble. Now we see pawn g6, and the knight re-centralizes. What a monster it is. A dragon simply attacks a pawn, and Fabi should defend. He misses to play the move. Instead, very low on time, he checks, the king gives ground, he wins this horrible doubled pawn, but now this one drops, so does this one, and a4. Run, Forest. Red carpet rolled out, the writing's on the wall, or is it? Well, look at this for a fight back, because after the rook now hits the knight, it drops back here, rook c4 hits the pawn, and in just a moment, Fabi manages to wiggle his way into a weird endgame here, because bishop c5 is played, the pawn pushes, now the rook hits the knight here, rook c2 hits the bishop, it saves itself, check is played, king g7, king b6 prepares to run it, but after bishop h4, we've got that glimmer of hope mentioned. f3, bishop f2, spinning round, eyeing the white king, rook e8 technically best, but the rook drops back here. f5 played, a6 and f4, and we've reached crunch point because the pressure's on this pawn here. Of course there's a pin, so you can't take, and there's a threat to go rook a4, round up this bad boy, therefore king a5 was best. Hit the rook, cover the square on a4, but not played. We get a7 immediately, and it allows Fabi to go rook a4. The game is back to dead level. You can just imagine his face at this point when he realizes it's so. I mean, probably not actually how it looked, but let's run with it. You got to embellish things on YouTube at times, right? Now we see king b7 takes on e3, and this is technically a drawn position after rook c2, but only if you find one move. Can you see the idea for black here if I give you 946 million seconds? Very well done if you found pawn to e2. And the idea is you distract the rook and then take here with the bishop. But hang on, aren't you just giving up a piece? Yes, you are. but now you can go rook f4. Hit the pawn, it's defended, but you run this guy down. Liquidate Gary for Freddy. This is the ensuing position, and this is a technically drawn position, although of course anything could happen in blitz, low on time. That was the way to go. Push 'em, baby. But not played. Sorry, there's a moth all up in my face. Really need to clean up in here or something, right? Some like serial killer den. Not a serial killer, but that just came to my mind. Probably been watching too much Jeepers Creepers. Now the move played by Fabi is king f6 here, and it's a big mistake. Double question marks of doom, because now you simply make the baby girl. That one's chopped off the board, yes, but after king recaptures, this one running in, you know, what's the big idea? You just can't push the pawn, and you're never in time with king f4, king f3, you know, in steps the knight, covers stuff, blah, blah, blah. So rook c4 was played. Now king d5 hits the rook. Don't blunder it. Yaz doesn't do so. Simply comes behind the pawn here. We get these couple of final moves, check, knight e2, and what to do. The king just starts marching in. Nothing can be touched. You're in a complete bind. Don't know where I drew a line there. Sorry, got a moth all over me. And this was where the game ended. But this was the final tournament position here. So Yaz takes the entire thing, 10 out of 11, ahead of Carlsen, ahead of Ali Reza, ahead of Fabi Wright, other very strong players. And I'm not aware of anyone who's done it at a younger age. You know, Denis Lazovic was 15. We had other youngsters, but 13 years old, winning title Tuesday. It's a bit more chess history just to go with the crazy Carlsen stuff. Thanks very much for watching. If you want to see another incredible game, the greatest opening of all time, played by Magnus, have a look at the video on screen, and I hope to see you again soon. Cheers.